In this video, we're going to go through upper block science, which is for primary 5 and 6. The module of systems, we're looking at specifically plant transport systems, some of the examination questions that would have appeared for plant transport systems. The following diagram shows a plant. At which part X, Y, or Z can the tubes that transport water be found? All right. So the water transport tubes is actually from the roots, goes up to the stem to all parts of the plant. All right. So basically, then you can find the water transport tubes at all parts of the plant. So it will be both X, Y, and Z over here. That's because if any part of the plant don't have the water transport tubes, then the part of the plant will die because it doesn't have water. So therefore, yes, all parts of the plant, all parts of the plant has your food transport tubes and your water transport tubes. So Lizzie set up an experiment using 4 similar leaf ABCD of a plant. She coated some surface on the leaf with oil as shown. So A, upper surface, lower surface, B, upper surface, lower surface, so on and so forth. So the leaves were put in open area for 5 hours, measured the mass of the leaves. So looking at this experiment, you should guess that it's something to do with the stomata of the leaf, all right, and which part of the leaf will give out gas. Okay, is it the upper surface or the lower surface? You know, does the upper surface give out more gas, give out more oxygen or carbon dioxide, or is it the lower surface that gives out more oxygen and carbon dioxide? So Lizzie measured the mass. So A is the heaviest, B, C, and D. So A, B, C, and D. And she wanted to use her results to compare the difference between the stomata on the upper and lower surface of the leaves. So what can Lizzie conclude about the number of stomata on the surfaces of the leaves? So if you cover both, so what happens is when you cover both, right? Okay, let's draw a leaf over here. So this is a leaf, all right? And if you cover the top side with oil and the bottom side with oil as well, then the gases, no matter where the stomata are, the gases will not be able to escape. And if the gases cannot escape, which is the oxygen and the carbon dioxide, then it will stay in the leaf and therefore it will become heavier. So therefore A is the heaviest because both upper and lower are coated with oil. So no matter where the stomata is, it cannot escape. So B is upper surface covered, lower surface not covered, and it's the second highest. So this one will have, like, for this particular plant, so there will be more stomata on B, and C, the lower surface, this is less stomata, is covered, and D is no stomata, is covered, and A is all stomata, is covered. So what can Lizzie conclude about the number of stomata on the surfaces on the leaves of this plant? Okay, this is quite a special plant because for most plants, the top has lesser stomata than the bottom. But for this particular plant, the top, B, has more stomata than the bottom. All right, because when I cover the top, it is heavier. So therefore, when there are more stomata and I cover it, then the mass will increase more. So what can I conclude about the number of stomata? So the leaves of this plant has more stomata on the surface as compared to the on the, let's call this the upper surface. All right, I use the same term as what the question used, as compared to the lower surface. All right, so it has more stomata on the upper surface as compared to the lower surface because when I cover the oil on the upper surface, the mass is greater than when I cover on the lower surface. So that means I'm covering more stomata on the upper surface to prevent more oxygen or carbon dioxide from leaving the leaf. Therefore, the mass will increase even more. Okay, Now, just a quick aside, most leaf, all right, have more stomata at the bottom surface, the lower surface, as compared to the upper surface, all right, especially leaves in Singapore or Asia Pacific, because the reason is we have a very big sun in Singapore. And if more stomata are on the upper surface, then this leaf will lose a lot of water because it's directly under the sun. So if it's at the lower surface, it will lose lesser water. So it's an adaptation to leaves that grow in like tropical countries like Singapore. All right, so the plants will have more stomata under the leaves so that they will lose lesser water. Explain the purpose of leaf D in this experiment. Okay, leaf D, where there is, if you look at leaf D, there is no oil at all. So the purpose of leaf D, and you always find this this experiment where there'll be one part where there's nothing happening to it. All right, so it serves as a control for the experiment. Okay, so leaf D serves as a control for the experiment. All right, so what a control does is that it ensures that whatever effect the effect we see is caused by the experiment. Okay, so in this case the effect is actually the mass gain by leaves. It's actually caused by the experiment. So the experiment is the oil on leaves. All right, so it will be really funny, right, if let's say line D is, instead of right at the bottom, is let's say over here. Oh, that's a thick line. So imagine if line D is smack in the middle, right? And then you'll be like wondering, I have no oil. How come the one with oil is lesser mass than the one without oil? So what's happening? Okay, so that'll be a really interesting experiment. But according to this graph, line D is right at the bottom, which is where we expect it to be because there's no oil on it, so all the gases can escape from the stomata. So therefore it's the least, but it just serves as a control to make sure that, hey, whatever we are doing in this experiment actually makes sense, and that's the right thing to expect. Jessica had 3 tubes X, Y, and Z containing an equal amount of chloroplast mixed in the same amount of yellow liquid P. The yellow mixture turns green after photosynthesis has taken place. Jessica placed tube X at a distance of 10 cm from the lamp. So over here, switch on the lamp in a dark room, recorded the time for the mixture to turn green. She repeated the experiment with tube Y and Z various distance from the lamp. So based on this reading of the question, roughly you can guess that the increase in the distance from the lamp will increase in the time that it turns green, all right? Because there will be lesser photosynthesis happening. So tube X is 17 minutes, tube Y 9 minutes, tube Z is 28 minutes. So roughly you can guess, which label correctly. So I want you to draw this one, draw this line that shows distance, all right? So distance from near to far. So nearest would be Y, furthest would be Z, and X would be in the middle. So with this, let's look at the answers and see which one is correct. So nearest is X, nearest is Y. So nearest is Y, middle is X, furthest is Z. So this is correct. Let's look at the others and make sure that we are on the right track. X is the nearest, so this is not correct because X is No, sorry, y is the nearest, x is the middle, so this is not correct. This is not correct. Y is the nearest, so this is not correct. This is not correct. Yep, so the answer is number 2. Alright, so in this question, I want you to learn this style of analyzing the question. Alright, so I call this the uphill slope. So always write down, draw the uphill slope, and then write near, far, or whatever that the question is supposed for you to write. And then based on this, right, analyze which should be on the downhill and which should be on the uphill. And then from this, then you can tell which is nearest and which is furthest. Okay, so there are many other questions that I use this technique in other science videos. So go and watch it and learn this technique, because it will reduce your careless mistakes when you're doing your science exams. The diagram below shows the movement of substance in the plant and the human. So roots will go up to the stem, to the leaves. So this is water. Alright, water will go up to the stem, to the leaves. Leaves come down to the roots, is actually food. Alright, food will come down to the leaves. Lungs go to your heart. So I always like to draw my diagram here. My heart. And then this is my leg. This is my leg. So my nose to my lungs to my heart to this, back to this, back to this, back to this. So again, you draw a line in the middle. This is high in oxygen, high in carbon dioxide. So lungs to the heart is oxygen, right? Lungs to the heart, to all parts of the body. Back to the heart, back to the heart, back to the lungs is carbon dioxide. So let's look at the options that we have. Which one of the following statements about the plant and human systems are true? Food is being transported from the roots to other parts of the plant. That's not correct. So it's actually food from the leaves. Food from the leaves is transported to all parts of the plant, not from the roots. It's water from the roots is transported to all parts of the plant. The water in the plant moves in one direction from the roots to all parts of the plant. This is correct, right? It moves from the roots to all parts of the plant. The blood is being pumped by the heart and circulated to all parts of the body. That is correct, okay? The blood will pump by the heart, goes to all parts of the body. Blood flows from the lungs to the heart, then back to the lungs again. Lungs to the heart and back to the lungs? Nope, that's not correct. So it's lungs to the heart, to all parts of the body, and back to the heart, to the lungs again. So this is incorrect. So Q and R is correct. The diagram below shows a plant, A, B, C, and D. 4 children made some statements. Part C transports water and dissolved mineral salts. So part C, which is the stem, transport water and dissolved mineral salts. So that is actually correct. Okay, so there are food and water tubes in the plant, and they transport water and dissolved mineral salts. Part D absorbs water and mineral salts from the soil. Part D is the roots, so that is correct. Okay, the roots absorb water and mineral salts from the soil. Part A makes food for the plant during respiration. Okay, so just this word, I don't have to look at the part, this is wrong already. It's during photosynthesis. Let's look at part A. Yes, this is correct. Part A make food for the plant, but it's not during respiration, it's during photosynthesis. Part B attracts animals which help in seed dispersal. So part B is the flower. So flower do not help in seed dispersal. Flower will help to pollinate. All right, pollinate. Seed dispersal is actually fruits. So if you see a fruit, then it helps in seed dispersal. If it's a flower, it helps in pollination. So that's not correct. So only Pei Ling and Qiu Ping are correct. So I think wanted to find out if there's any colored light that could not be used for plants to photosynthesize. 3 setups. So basically, you know, some light will have better photosynthesis, some light will have not so good photosynthesis. So lime water over here. Green plant kept in the dark for 3 days before the experiment. There's some lamp, there's some flask. So the plant was exposed to light that was similar in color as the filter color. At the end of 5 hours, 1 leaf in each setup was tested for starch. Also, the observation of the lime water was recorded in the table shown below. So color of the filter, red light. So this is red light, blue light, and green light. So lime water remain clear, turn chalky. So you have to learn this. Lime water is actually a test for carbon dioxide. All right. So if there is carbon dioxide, there is a presence of carbon dioxide, it will turn chalky. If there is no carbon dioxide, then it will remain clear. All right. So this is carbon dioxide. So if there's no carbon dioxide, it will remain clear. If there is carbon dioxide, it will turn chalky. So this turn chalky. So it's yes to carbon dioxide. This is no to carbon dioxide, no to carbon dioxide. Name one variable that must be kept constant to ensure a fair test. All right, so she wanted to find out if any colored light could not be used. So the changed variable is the colored light. All right, the changed variable is the colored light, and the measured variable is the carbon dioxide. All right, and starch. So you're measuring these two variables. So anything other than that should be the same. So you can say same plant, same type of plant. All right, same power of light, or same location. All right, because some location might be, or same temperature. So all this must be kept the same in order for this to become a fair test. Based on the table, what could be concluded about the effect of light color on the plant's ability to photosynthesize? Alright, so if you are able to photosynthesize, yes to photosynthesize, what will you produce as a gas? You will produce oxygen. Alright, and if you cannot photosynthesize, then what the plants will do is to respire and will produce carbon dioxide. So if you notice, only the green light, they turn chalky, which is produce carbon dioxide, and therefore the plant, I can conclude that it cannot photosynthesize under green light. Alright, so based on the table, what could be concluded about the effect of light color on the plant's ability to photosynthesize? So again, plant's ability to photosynthesize, that is the last, there's a statement. So we can conclude that the plant is not able to photosynthesize in green light. Okay, why? Okay, ask yourself why. Because it produces carbon dioxide and not oxygen. Okay, so you have to also explain that photosynthesis produces oxygen and respiration produces carbon dioxide, and therefore it cannot photosynthesize in green light. So when you see the word conclude, you're actually looking at the results. All right, you're looking at the results. So you have the results already, and you have to work backwards and figure out the reason. So therefore, we look at the results, which is green light turns chalky. So we can say that the reason is because it's not able to photosynthesize in green light, because there's no carbon dioxide. Sorry, because it produces carbon dioxide and not oxygen, and photosynthesis produces oxygen, respiration produces carbon dioxide. All right, so that's the working backwards to give you the reason. After the starch test was done, what observation to the color of the iodine solution would show her conclusion was correct? Okay, so you have to learn this iodine starch solution. So iodine is used to test for the presence of starch. All right, and if there is no starch, the color of iodine is yellow, or if it's very concentrated, then it becomes brown. Okay, yellow-brown. And if there is a presence of starch, then it becomes like dark blue or black color. Just now we said that green, there is no photosynthesis. Red and yellow has photosynthesis. So if you have photosynthesis, therefore you make food. And when you test for starch, then it should be yes, there is starch. And you should be looking at blue, black for red, as well as blue, black for blue. And for green, because there's no photosynthesis, it will remain as yellow, brown. Okay, so you need to learn these two colors and what it represents with presence of starch. So if there's no starch, it's yellow or brown. If there is starch, it becomes blue or black. So for this question, there are a few things you have to be careful about. So the first thing is actually the green light and the turning of the chalky. So turning of chalky means for what do you call that? Lime water. When lime water turns chalky, it actually means there is carbon dioxide. And when it means there's carbon dioxide, means it cannot photosynthesize, and therefore it cannot photosynthesize under green light. Okay, so you have to realize this for this question. So the plant is not able to photosynthesize. Yeah, so that's this part of the question. And for this part of the question, you need to understand that you need to learn not need to remember that iodine is a test for starch. So no starch is yellow or brown. Yes, starch is blue or black. Diane found a fruit tree at part X over, where is it? Over here. She removed an outer ring from the stem as shown below. Food carrying tubes were removed while the food carrying tubes were removed while the water carrying tubes remain in the stem. So therefore, all the food that's trying to go down will get stuck on top over here. All the water that's going up can still go to all parts of the plant because the water carrying tubes are still intact. Okay? Only the food carrying tubes are removed. After some time, she noticed fruits growing above and below part X. So there were some fruits over here and some fruits over here where she removed the outer ring. So Diane found that the fruits above part X were sweeter than those below part X. Suggests why sweeter fruits were produced above part X. So again, this is a suggest question. So you have sweeter fruits were produced above part X. This is the final. So the initial is actually the cut, all right? Cutting the outer ring. So over here is cut outer ring, and the final is sweeter fruits above X. And you have to give the scientific explanations for what's happening between here and here. All right, constantly ask yourself, so what, and you can figure out the answer. So let's just go through it together. Okay, so when you cut the outer ring, you remove the food carrying tubes. All right, and therefore food is stuck above part X, all right, because cannot be sent to the part below part X because the tube is cut. All right, food is stuck above part X as it cannot be transported below X, all right, because the food carrying tube is stuck. So what if it cannot be transported? So what? All right, I always write this, so what, so that more food will be stored in fruits above part X, and therefore the sweeter fruits will be above part X. Okay, so first initial state is you cut the outer ring. So cutting outer ring means you remove the food tubes. So food is stuck above part X as it cannot be transported below part X. So what if it cannot be transported below part X? more food will be stored in fruits above part X, and therefore the sweeter fruits will be above part X. Okay, so that's how you answer this kind of questions. The diagram shows a seed growing into a young plant, seed leaf, Z. Okay, because there are no leaves here, the food actually comes from the seed leaf, alright? This is quite a special case, and if you look at it, part Z is above the seed leaf, so the food actually goes in this way. The water will also go in this way. So water will travel upwards, that's correct. The food in this special case will also travel upwards because they are taking food from the seed leaf. Now, until they can grow their own leaves, then the food will travel downwards. Okay, but at this point in time, because there are no young leaves, so it travels upwards. So the answer is number 2. Ali created the setup shown below: light source from a lamp, test tube bubbles, Elodia. Elodia are some submerged plants because of water bubbles. So the plants are basically going through the process of photosynthesis, and it produces oxygen, and all these bubbles are bubbles of oxygen. So you notice that when the light source was positioned nearer to the beaker of water, more bubbles can be seen because the light is more intense. These bubbles were produced by the Elodia. Which of the following best explains how the bubbles were produced? Light source caused the bubble to boil. That's not correct. It won't boil from the light source. The evaporation of water into water vapor, that's not correct. Water vapor, if you want to see bubbles, will be somewhere on top. Okay. Presence of light caused photosynthesis to take place. This is correct. Absorption of mineral salt present in water, blah blah blah. This is wrong. Okay, so basically this is quite an easy question. You should understand that the Elodia is going through photosynthesis, produces oxygen, and these bubbles are oxygen. Ahmad covered a plant in his garden with a cardboard box for 2 days. So what does this mean? So no photosynthesis is taking place. All right. That's what it means. Before conducting an experiment, after removing the box, he cut a ring around the stem at P. 3 days later, he conducted a starch test on the leaves A and B. So brown means what? Dark blue means what? So brown means no starch, and dark blue means yes for starch. Starch is also known as the food that the plant is making. All right, so yes, starch means there is photosynthesis going on. Which of the following statements could explain Ahmad's test results? There was no water in the soil. No, this one don't know what this explains. Doesn't explain anything. There was a lack of sunlight during the 3 days after the ring was cut. So if you look at the experiment again, he put his garden for the plant for 2 days. So for 2 days there was no photosynthesis, means no food was being produced, no starch was being produced. After removing the box, he cut a ring around stem P. 3 days later, so in these 3 days, there was photosynthesis. So yes, photosynthesis, and yes, food was being produced. He conducted a starch test. So in these 3 days, what happened is the leaves produced photosynthesis. They tried to send the food down, but they could not. All right, so all these leaves should have starch. These leaves should have starch, but these leaves over here should have no starch, okay? Because during the previous 2 days, there was already no photosynthesis and no food being made. So there was a lack of sunlight during the 3 days after the ring was cut. Not true. During the 3 days, there was photosynthesis and food was produced. He had cut the food carrying tube only. So this is true. All right, he had cut the food carrying tube only. He had cut both the food carrying tube and the water carrying tubes. That's not true. If he had done that, then the plant would be starting to die. So if he had cut the food carrying tube only, what happened is that the food cannot go down, and all this, because this part of the branch is actually below the cut part. All right, it's below the cut part, so all this will have no starch, whereas above the cut part will have starch, because in these 3 days, all these plants would have photosynthesized. So he put some iodine solution. So brown means no starch. Dark blue means yes for starch. Okay, must remember this. So which of the following is correct? So starch, Y and Z is yes for starch. So bread is actually starch. Chicken is not. Chicken is protein. Potato is starch. Rice is starch. Chicken is not. Potato is starch. Potato is starch. Bread is starch. No starch. So fish, no starch, no starch. Rice is starch. So yes. So answer is number 4. Alright, so you have to remember that rice is starch. Potato is starch. Wait, sorry. Made a mistake over here. It's not number 4. So again, X has no starch, right? So I made a mistake over here. X has no starch, therefore fish is correct. Fish is correct. Rice is wrong. Rice is wrong because rice is starch. So answer is number 2. All right, fish, potato, and rice. So fish will remain as brown. Potato and rice will turn dark blue because it's made up of starch.